Candace Owens, who tends to mock the left as people who engage in the oppression Olympics, people who love to make themselves the victims, is now making herself and conservatives victims. But she's doing so in one of the most ignorant ways imaginable. Let's watch.
Dehumanization. During the Holocaust, the Nazis referred to Jewish people as rats. It's another form of dehumanization. Because what has to happen before the mass infliction of any atrocity is the treatment of individuals as subhuman. I'm bringing this up because right now, in this country, in America, conservatives are being dehumanized. I'm going to say that again. Conservatives right now in the United States of America are being dehumanized. That is not up for debate. Over the weekend on Twitter, I saw hashtag maggots trending. Maggots is spelled M-A-G-A-T-S, obviously a play off of MAGA. Conservatives that support Trump are now being called maggots, and that trend is allowed on Twitter. The idea is to make millions of people believe that conservatives are vermin. And of course, vermin has to be dealt with, right? That is why the Biden regime is stepping to the plate to deal with us.
So is she calling for censorship of speech on Twitter because she doesn't like that maggots are trending? And look, I mean, I don't condone that type of rhetoric. I think that it is extremely toxic and I don't think it's helpful. We're already incredibly divided, but I would argue that Candace Owens should probably take a little bit of responsibility for how her rhetorical takes on controversial issues have also been incredibly divisive and dehumanizing. Now, before I get to all of that, I do want to go to an older video featuring Candace Owens, because while she, I think rightly, points to the horrendous barbarism and mass slaughter that was carried out by Nazis, earlier she seemed to have a much lighter take on who Hitler was and what his objectives were.
I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
I mean, if he wanted to just slaughter Jewish people in Germany, it'd be totally fine. But the problem is he wanted to go global. You know what I'm saying? He didn't want to keep it within his borders. That was the real problem. Now, she walked those statements back a little later because they were insane and deeply, deeply offensive, ignorant, and embarrassing. But I would argue that the statements she made today were just as deeply ignorant and embarrassing. Because to argue that the treatment of conservatives in America can be equated to the persecution and slaughter of Jewish people under Hitler's rule is just, like, what world is she living in? I mean, 6 million Jews were slaughtered by Hitler and the Nazis. 6 million. We're living in a situation in the United States where conservatives, I mean, we can't even get Republican lawmakers to agree to an investigation into what took place on January 6th in our nation's capital. As a group of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol violently, I mean, just used brutality toward Capitol Police who were outmanned. And you can't even get Republican lawmakers to investigate them. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. Republicans in the Senate blocked legislation to form a January 6th commission to investigate what happened in the nation's capital that day. But you know, conservatives are really persecuted because sometimes people say mean things on Twitter. And that's the same as being persecuted like the Jews were from the Nazis. How stupid is that? How stupid? allow her? Like, who works with her and says, no, that's it. You know what, Candace? Nailed it. This is gonna be a good segment. Nailed it. Come on, man, your producers are doing you dirty, girl. They need to sit you down and take a look at what you're planning on saying, because that was horrendous. Now, in terms of dehumanizing people, Candace Owens has engaged in her fair share of dehumanizing behavior. In fact, she loves to minimize, just absolutely minimize racism in the country, bigotry in the country, situations in which systemic racism and discrimination fundamentally impacts the lives of people of color in this country. Yes, black people, but not just black people. We're talking about Muslims, we're talking about Hispanics, we're talking about Latinos. Like, it is a problem, but she thinks it's not a problem at all. She, in fact, thinks that they need to stop seeing themselves as victims. Now, here's one of her statements from 2017. She said, quote, "I don't care about Charlottesville, the KKK, or white supremacy. I mean, there are, what, 6,000 Klansmen left in our nation? You want me to actually process that as a legitimate fear every day when I wake up?" Okay, here's another one, again from 2017. "There was only one version of a black person that these platforms are willing to help propel toward fame and notoriety, and that is an angry black victim." She just wants, black people to stop complaining, stop with the victimhood, while she turns herself into a victim today on the same level as Jews who were persecuted and slaughtered by the Nazis. And she, of course, loves to dehumanize anyone who doesn't fit a very traditional conservative mold. For instance, remember when Harry Styles did that photo shoot for Vogue where, he was wearing a dress and everyone thought it was great because who cares? Express yourself, has no negative impact on anyone's life. Well, she had to weigh in on that, and she felt that it was a huge problem. "There is no society that can survive without strong men," she says. "The East knows this. In the West, the steady feminization of our men at the same time that Marxism is being taught," Marxism is not being taught to our children, but that's what she claimed, "is not a coincidence. It is an outright attack. Bring back manly men." And of course, she doesn't think that transgender people deserve the same rights as everyone else. And we also can't forget the fact that she works for a guy who has no problem dehumanizing others, including Palestinians. Let's go to Ben Shapiro's tweet from 2010, where he said, "Israelis like to build, Arabs," he's referring to Palestinians here, "like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue." Yeah, a lot of dehumanizing rhetoric going around. The thing is, when you make yourself a victim of dehumanizing rhetoric, maybe take a moment for self-reflection. Maybe take a good hard look at that glass mansion you're living in before you start throwing stones. Because again, while I might agree that the, trending topic that she was referring to is not helpful, I don't like it, and I wish that we didn't have that kind of discourse on Twitter. She also needs to take responsibility for being a huge part of how political discourse has completely devolved in this country, leading to more division, more hatred, more hate crimes. She doesn't want to take any responsibility for any of that, and I think it's about time she does it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.